Hey everybody, how's it going? You guys look a little sleepy. All right, we're getting to that point in the afternoon. Really excited to be here today and excited to tell you a little bit, if Mark Andreessen said software is eating the world, this is going to be the cookbook or the recipe or the food channel for you. This I think, is important for you guys as investors, as limiteds, and people interested in the startup and where the world is going and technologically. So I'm here to talk about we are software people. And then the next question is, well, what does that mean? More importantly, though, I would tell you that our time is now, and this is really important for you guys and what's going on in Silicon Valley. My story here about software people and sort of the realizations that I've had about the changes that are going on, they start about 5 years ago when after I started Twilio, and I started raising my first round of investment. And Mitch was an investor, and Dave was an investor, so I give these guys props. But for a lot of the other people I talked to, some of whom are in the room, I got sort of a blank stare when I talked about Twilio, right? So I'd go in and I'd pitch Twilio, and I'd say, we're building a platform, a set of APIs that let developers communicate and let developers tap into the global telecom network in order to add communications into their applications. And I got this sort of blank stare or sort of angry, like, well, wait, what do you mean API is your company, right? What you do is you build a product. And if you're successful in building a product, like go build an IVR or build a PBX or a conferencing system, and then only then, if you're successful, are you allowed to put an API on it. That's the only strategy that works with developers and with APIs. And what I got was this, they didn't understand what I was talking about or why we would need APIs in the world. And that's because of my background was unique, coming at solving this problem. So Dave mentioned I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done multiple companies in the past. In fact, one of the companies that I have, one of the companies that I did in my past was StubHub. I was the first CTO over at StubHub. And so when we were building StubHub, we said we need communications to be a part of the solution of online ticket selling. Why? Because as we convert the world of tickets from shady street corner transactions into an online software-driven process, we need to communicate. We need to communicate with the seller. Hey, your ticket just sold. We need to send a courier to pick it up from you ASAP. Tell us where to go. We needed to dial down a list of couriers and say, hey, courier, I need you to go here, pick up a ticket, press 1 if you can accept the job. And we had to then notify the buyer. Hey, buyer, the courier's showing up in 2 minutes. Make sure you're ready. Right, so we had all these communications needs, and what we found was an industry that wanted to sell us black boxes. We found a telecommunications industry. They wanted to sell us these monolithic black boxes. Here's a PBX, right? And then you can go hire professional services, and you can spend the next year. You can cut us $1 million check to get these boxes to rack up in your closet, and then go spend professional services doing integrations and these gurus who understand, Cisco certified this and that. Or these guys in the Avaya trucks you see driving around all the time. And we said, well, wait a minute, that's not what we have in mind. That's not what we're thinking about. It just kind of doesn't compute with us. Right? I had a similar experience. Again, I started another company. It was a bricks and mortar retailer for extreme sporting goods, of all things. And when we started this business, we sort of put on our software hats, and I was the CTO of a bricks and mortar store, and said, well, what do we need to run a successful retail business in 2003, which is when we started it? We said, well, we're going to have to be really killer with our analytics on our inventory and our turns and our customers and our CRM and our loyalty and all this amazing stuff. And then we went out and we said, okay, what's out there for our point of sale, for our shipping and receiving, for our ordering? What's all the software you use to run a retail business in 2003? And what we found, again, were black boxes. Right? Some of it was like Win32, software you just installed on a Windows computer. Others were like big Java, multi-million-dollar enterprise Home Depot grade stuff. But we didn't find was like, yeah, here are the bits that you put together and integrate so you can get data into it. You can get data out of it. You can analyze your data. You can put automated replenishment orders back in. You can do all sorts of smart things with it. Not what we found. We found these silos, these black boxes of software. And then I think ahead to my time at Amazon, and I was in product at Amazon, and there was a really interesting thing that happened there. We were at an all-hands meeting with Jeff, and someone asked the question, and I don't even remember exactly what the question was. It was something about the strategy, are we going to stand up physical stores or something? I don't even remember what it was. But his answer, though, stuck with me, if not the question. His answer was, well, in case it's not obvious, we're a software company. Amazon.com is a software company. We write software. It just so happens we make money when boxes appear at our customers' doors. But above all else, we're a software company. In fact, we're going to make more money than our competitors because we are going to be able to better arrange magnetic particles on hard drives. That's our core skill, arranging magnetic particles on hard drives better than our competitors. So I thought, wow, that's really interesting. So who are these software people? What is this all about? And I'll give you a hint. It's not just about writing code. It's not just developers or software people. Really, it is anybody who sees the world through the lens of software. Anybody who sees the world through this lens of software, not just developers, right? There are a wide variety of people inside a wide variety of organizations who have this software mentality. And it all comes down to the question of them saying, how can software solve this problem that we have? People who ask this question and then move to act on it, those are your software people. In fact, software people fundamentally believe that any problem in the world can be solved with software once we suck that problem into the domain of software. And that's a pretty interesting thing, right? So these software people, essentially, what they do, they solve problems with magnetic particles, just like Jeff said. And what's the most interesting thing is that now is the best time ever to be a software person and to be innovating in the world of software. Why is that? Well, I'd say there are two primary reasons. Number one, more and more of the world's problems are solvable, are addressable by software, more than ever before. And number two, less and less of the world's non-software problems hinder our progress. Okay, so what do these things mean? Number one, more and more of the world's problems are addressable by software people. So if you think about software, you think about computers, and generally speaking, you get this notion that a computer sucks in some part of the world, does some sort of computation on it, and spits back out something else back into the real world. That's the general thing that computers do. In fact, if they didn't take in the world and spit back out the world, they wouldn't be useful to us. We'd just be sitting there wondering what's going on inside that box, right? So this is what every computer does, and this is what every piece of software does. And what's so interesting is that our progression, we've been able to suck more and more of the world into the world of software. So it started as number crunching, binary data, census data, right? And then moved in the next wave, we got really good at pulling text into computers with keyboards and laser printers and getting text out of printers, right? And then the next wave is getting audio and video into and out of computers. You can sort of see the history of the computer, what starts with numerical and census data, number crunching in the 50s and 60s. The next 20 years were spent bringing textual problems into the computer. And this is when the computer moved into the office, right? Because you got word processing and spreadsheets. And then the next step was multimedia, audio and video in the 90s and 2000s. And we got MP3s and we got YouTube because computers could now address multimedia. And what's so interesting is that now is the time for everything else. And that's going to be the next 2 decades of what we're doing with computers and with software. Sucking the rest of the world into the domain of software, computing on it, and turning over industry after industry in the process. Well, why is that? Well, if you think about software and you step back from not just world in, world out, but you actually look at it as sensors go in, we sense some part of the real world, and then you have actuators on the other side. You actuate something back into the real world. And what's so cool is what's going on right now is a proliferation of these sensors and these actuators in the world. And there's basically one simple reason for why this is going on. Smartphones. Smartphones are just buckets of sensors and actuators in everybody's pocket, connected to the internet at all times. And this is completely changing what software people are capable of doing in the world. Right? So if you think about it, Twilio, similar. We're a platform. What we let you do is programmatically control 15 billion devices in the world, all through software. Let's think about another one. Let's look at Square. You guys are all familiar with Square? Are you LPs in it somehow? Hope so. What they did is they've got this little device, right? Everybody thinks of Square as this little device, right? But actually what this is brilliant. This little device is just part of it. It's the very beginning of what they are doing. In fact, that is the sensor needed to suck the real world into a computer. The bare minimum needed to read the magnetic stripe on a credit card, pull it into the cloud via your phone so they can do software on it, and then actuate back out. But instead of a receipt printer, which is what you usually get, you get an SMS. Right? So you get sensors, computation, actuators. They have sucked the world of payments into the world of software, and that's what is so powerful about what they're doing. Let's look at another example. You guys are familiar with Uber. So they've taken the problem of hailing a cab and moved it into the domain of software. They've taken hailing a cab and made it a software problem. Why? Because of the sensors and actuators in your phone. They'll let you sense where you are, what kind of cab you want, hit the button, and then the actuator, the text message that says, hey, your cab is arriving now, get in it. And then after you leave, say, hey, here's your receipt for what the ride you took. So again, it's just that bucket of sensors and actuators that enabled them to pull the entire industry of hailing a cab, of transportation, into the world of software and solve it like a software problem. Here's another company, Fitbit. How many people have a Fitbit? People think of Fitbit as a hardware company. Wrong. Right? What they built is just the bare minimum amount of hardware needed to turn your activity into a software problem. The product that you buy is not the sensor. The product you buy is all the data that results from your use of the sensor. And so this is really interesting, right? So what you end up with is this notion that in the world of software people, minimalism is key as we relate to the physical world. Because minimalism maintains the flexibility in our software. Right? And you'll see this time and time and time again. And whenever you see companies do this, you say, oh, I know their game plan. These are software people sucking more of the world into computers and solving problems with software. So let's take a look at a few of the differences between software people and not software people, right? It's sort of interesting. You have a remote control for your cable box, right? Not software people making that thing. Look at all those buttons. It's never going to do anything new in its whole life. It's going to throw it away one day. Whereas software people designed that. Why? Well, yes, it's hardware, but what this does is it actually moves all the smarts of this thing into where it should be, which is software. It's just a few buttons, the minimal thing needed to bridge the physical world of your lazy-ass finger on the couch into the world of software. The Apple TV gets software updates all the time, adding new functionality and new capabilities and new channels. That's the power of software. Let's take a look at another industry, right? I talked about it before. This is how you used to do credit card payments at a store. That device, while there is software running in it, is not software people. Why? Because what do you think? You buy that thing and it's going to do one thing for its whole life until you throw it away. And again, software people build this. They build Square. They know that the minimal bridge from the world of hardware into software is what's needed, and then they can ship weekly updates to the Square app to add new functionality, to fix bugs, to make the thing better, and be very agile about it. That's software at work. Let's look at another example. Your home thermostat. Not software people. How many people know how to operate their thermostat? Not me. This is what software people do. They have to have some amount of hardware there, but then everything else is implemented in software. So hardware, all it is a knob. Everything else is software. That's what software people do. Let's look at another example, right? This is the most popular cell phone in the world in 2006, right? Not software people. Why? It's all about the hardware. And as Steve Jobs got up and introduced the iPhone, he showed us there's no buttons on the thing. Why is that? Because we're software people. Because we're going to preserve the maximum amount of flexibility in this device and turn all of its functionality into software. It's pretty powerful. Let's take another look, though. Let's take a look at what enterprise solutions are selling in this space, right? So you've got Cisco selling you this. You probably have something that looks something like this on your desk back at work, right? Look at all those buttons. How many of you actually know what any of those buttons do? Right? The only ones you know what they do are like 0 through 9, right? Those are the only buttons you ever use on that thing. But your IT department probably paid $1,000, maybe $2,000 on that thing. But what's so interesting is you might be saying, but wait, Jeff, Cisco employs 30,000 software developers. That's more than Twilio. How can you say that they are not a software company, right? My answer to that is sort of clear, and I'll do my best Jeff Foxworthy impersonation, which is, you might not be a software person when, This is how you scale that out. And this isn't a joke. This is the most recent modern product release from Cisco about how they scale out your office phone system. This photo was taken directly from their website. I swear to you, I did not Photoshop it. You're not a software person when this is how you think. When software people think of telephones, they think of what's the bare minimum I need to bridge the real world and push everything else into software. And this is a software person's telephone. The headset and the microphone. That's all you need to be a telephone in the world of software. And so when I say you have this minimal hardware implementation, that preserves the power of software. That's what I mean. And this is where the world is going in industry after industry after industry, right? So when I say more and more of the world's problems are addressable by software people, this is the trend I'm talking about. We're sucking more and more of the world from the real world and moving it into the domain of software. And the traits that you'll see when it happens are people building these bridges, but keeping them minimal so that software flexibility is what's key. So moving on to the next thing I told you, less and less of the non-software problems of the world hinder the progress of software people. This is also incredibly interesting. Let's look at one of the problems that is not software. Building a data center. Look at this guy. He's pretty smug. He feels pretty good. He just built out a data center for his company. Look at the problems he had to solve. He had to buy hardware, networks, racks, HVAC, power. He had to solve real estate problems, right? He had to hedge the real estate markets to figure out if they plop their data center here and grow 100x over the next 5 years, if they're still going to be able to yada yada, right? This is definitively not how software people think about it. In fact, quite the opposite. Here's what software people now have. Software people use EC2. Why? Because you make a pure software call, an API call. You say, give me a server, and 20 seconds later, you got a server. That's a pure software version of spinning up a data center. Let's look at another example. Here's the typical telecom closet that you guys probably all have in your offices. So when you stand that up, you're solving hardware problems, professional services, you're negotiating carrier contracts. You've got lawyers involved. Lawyers are not software, very clearly, right? This is not software, and contrasted with that, you get the pure software solution in what Twilio does, right? We make one line of code possible to make the phone calls, buy phone numbers, receive phone calls, and do all the business logic, right? That's the pure software approach. You jettison all the headaches of the non-software world. And so we are software people. This is why I say our time is now. And it's so important. This is the best time ever. Why? User expectations have changed. So it's not just that it's fun to be a software person, you have to be a software person. Why is user expectations changing? You've got these great experiences as consumers. Google, Apple products, Facebook, right? These products are fabulous. We adopt them, we run to them because they are a great user experience. And this same user experience is going to be expected in every product that we use, whether as consumers, small businesses, or enterprises. That is the expectation. That is where the bar is. And you see this in Harley Manning of Forrester Research says, the only source of competitive advantage is one that can survive a technology-fueled disruption. And that is an obsession with customer experience. Every realm of business, this is true. And so what this means going forward for software people and for infrastructure, which is we no longer, as companies, we do not get brownie points for using servers. We get brownie points for serving our users. That's what it's going to come down to, clear and simple. So as companies, we need to focus on the user. We focus on the user, or you're in serious risk of losing to someone who does. And that's what software people do incredibly well. Why do software people move fast and focus on their users? Well, they have to. We have to iterate quickly. We ship constantly. We're getting feedback from customers constantly. So you're going to have to become one of these or lose to someone who is. That's how you should think about your companies, the people you're investing in. And what's so interesting is why is that? Why is that the case? Well, software people are used to this world where your competition is closer than ever before. Think about it. On the internet, your competition is literally a click away on Google. And so that's why software people focus so relentlessly on customer experience. Because if you don't provide what your customers want, they will bounce and they'll find someone else who does very efficiently. And for those people who grew up in the age of the internet, that's what we're accustomed to. And that's the standard. That's what we've gotten very good at, right? So there's another interesting example as well. Even if you are not a software company, there's all sorts of reasons why you need to be software people. Let's think about social media for a second. How many of you guys remember that story about United breaks guitars? Right? United shipped that guy's guitar, and he saw the guy throwing it, and the guitar was broken, and they wouldn't compensate him, so he made this video that went viral on YouTube talking about how horrible United was. And what's so interesting about this experience is that, how many times has United shipped a guitar uneventfully? Right? Very many times they've shipped a guitar without an incident. But now with social media, it only takes one screw up, and you've got yourselves a big PR issue. Right? That's the amplifying effect of the internet. So what's so interesting is you need to create a customer experience 100% of the time that is on. Organizations going forward are going to be measured by the customer experience they create at scale for every single customer. And what's so interesting is that only software people can do that. Only software people can create that kind of experience. So that is why I believe in software people. We are the army of ones and zeros. We are rebuilding the world through this lens of software. Industry after industry, we are changing. And we are thinking, using this lens of software, saying, how can software solve this problem? And changing the world every single day. No industry is safe. We are software people, and therefore we are going to win. Thank you very much. I'm Jeff. Appreciate it.